with a lot of the fans at Wimbledon. I feel like because, you know, I've been going to Wimbledon as a fan from the age of 4. Like, you know, my dad, when I was, you know, sort of 9 or 10 years old, I think under like 6-year-old kids get in. So he'd stick me and my brother in a pram and say, pretend you're like 5 years old.
I used to do that at Main Road.
Yeah, getting in. Yeah, well, you were 25.
Yeah, I was 25 being carried in.
Exactly.
Through the turnstile.
The official Manchester City podcast. Watch the full video version of this show via City Plus now.
Nedum, something a bit different today. Usually we have footballers or ex-footballers. Today we've got a tennis player, Liam Broady, Manchester City fan from Stockport. Career high of 93 in the world in tennis, which he achieved late last year. Are you looking forward to getting under his skin a little bit?
Absolutely, yeah. I think obviously my experiences of playing football mean that, you know, I've got a connection with footballers or former footballers, but I do find it fascinating when you get a chance to listen to people who've reached the very top of their profession as well. I think, you know, you mentioned the 93 and it feels like, oh, it's just 93. But hundreds of thousands of people are trying to be in the position that he's in right now. So it'd be great to listen to him talk about his journey and also his love for City as well.
I mean, that's essentially that's the Premier League, isn't it, in tennis terms? When you think that each squad in the Premier League's got 25 players and there's 20 teams in the league. So he's very, very high up in his world, isn't it?
Absolutely is. You know, this is a guy that has played in the biggest tournaments in the sport that he's decided to try and make his profession in. So, as I say, I'm genuinely fascinated to listen to what he has to say, because realistically, myself and I imagine lots of the audience have no idea what it's like.
Well, Liam's a big City fan, a great guy, so I'm really looking forward to this one. So let's do this. Here we go. Liam Broady, professional tennis player and Manchester City fan. And here he is in conversation on the official Manchester City podcast. Liam Broady, thank you very much for joining us on the official Manchester City podcast. Let's start with your current situation, because obviously you're out injured, which is the reason we're able to talk to you today. How's that going? What is the injury and what stage of rehabilitation are you at?
So I've got a stress fracture in my right ankle at the moment. I think my last match was about 5 weeks ago or so. I actually did it in my pre-season in December. And then I went to the first tournament of the year to warm up for Australian Open. Played 4 matches on it. I was playing really well. That was kind of the problem as well, because it was just sort of gradually getting worse and worse. And obviously in tennis, you play one match, you lose, you're out. But, you know, I was going deeper and deeper. And then in the last match, I played Andrei Rublev in the second round, the world number 4. And in the first set, I felt it kind of go, really. And then I ended up flying all the way to Australia from Hong Kong, got an MRI there, and they basically said you can't play Australian Open. Problem was, obviously, I was sort of at a career high ranking at that point, sort of 95 in the world. So wanted to come back quick, come back after a month, just over a month, and then I couldn't run. So, but the good thing about tennis is it's all lateral movement. So I was able to kind of get away with it. I went to North America for about a month and then had to stop that trip early, came back, got a scan again. It had progressed into a stress fracture, essentially. So I think it's sort of 10, 11, 12 weeks, something like that.
Do you think there's a tendency for tennis players to try and play through injuries because of the nature of the ranking system and because it's a solo sport, you don't have a wage and a contract and all those kind of things that footballers can fall back on? Do you think there is a tendency to push yourself a little bit? Because from that anecdote there, it seems like maybe you've overextended slightly.
Yeah. I was going to say you encouraging me to have a dig at football.
No, he does it himself. It's fine. I'm just sitting there like, interesting, Rob.
He's trying to set me up at the net here.
Cool question.
Yeah. So, look, I'm going to be honest. At the level I play at, obviously, you know, your Roger Federers, Rafael Nadals, Novak Djokovic's, they have these huge endorsement deals that, you know, they never have to play again. But at the level I'm at, if you want to get paid, you have to play. That comes from prize money, and obviously the endorsements I have, I kind of need to play and compete, and it's all completely results based. So whilst I'm not playing now, I'm hemorrhaging money. I'm still paying my coach. I'm still paying my team. I've got to pay for my rehab. So that was a large part of it for me personally. When it comes to tennis, I don't care about. I don't play tennis for the money. I play it because it's my passion. I'm obsessed with it. It's what I love. So I mean, one of the main reasons was because I wanted to get back. I can't stand sitting still. And I think that's one of the reasons why I re-injured it and came back a bit quick. And the other reason was obviously because I'd just reached the career high and if I didn't play for the next month, I was going to drop outside the top 100 again. And, you know, unfortunately, that's what happened. You can't really play with an injury, and now it's probably sort of 4 or 5 months of being injured and trying to play that I've kind of decided, right, I need to get rid of this, take care and sort it out.
What's the big difference then between, say, being in the top 100 and being outside of that?
I think it's more like the name of it. Like top 100 sounds cool, doesn't it? Like I was saying this to a lot of people. Like, so obviously I started playing pro when I was 18, so I'm 30 now. I've been playing for 12 years, and from like a young age within the tennis circle, like top 100 is like you've made it. And I think that's because to get main draw of the slams like US Open, French Open, Wimbledon, you probably need to be inside the top 100, maybe top 95. So I think that's where it comes from, because that's where the real money is in tennis. It's those big events. And, you know, I just made it for the first time last year. It was a 12-year sort of slog, and most people kind of quit when they're sort of 300, 200, not really doing much within the sport. And you know, so it felt like a great achievement to me. And one of the reasons why as well was because I was a very successful junior. I won a couple of junior Grand Slams in doubles, and I made a couple of junior slam finals as well. And I remember reading a statistic that 80% of players who had made the US Open final juniors went on to make the top 100. So it kind of became like an obsession of mine, because I remember going through the list of players on the board in Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York and thinking, I don't want to be one of the guys that's on the wrong side. You know, because you'd look at a couple of names, you'd be like, oh, I don't know who that is. Oh, yeah, they only got to 300. And then the players that had made top 100, it was like, right, okay. So I always thought I want to be on the right side. So that's kind of why it became such a big deal for me personally as well.
So you reached your career high of 93 in September last year. You had a good grass court swing and had some really good results elsewhere as well. Why do you think that came to you at the age of 29, 30, rather than perhaps earlier in your career?
I think probably because of stuff going on off the court. I think by nature I'm quite an immature person. I'm an immature 30-year-old as well. I think at 29 I probably had the mental maturity of a 25-year-old. And I think maturity is a large part of it. I think these phenoms in all sports, in all walks of life, tend to be more mature from a younger age with the way they approach their sport and the sacrifices they make. And I probably went through a stage when I was sort of, I got a little bit lost, I guess. I was probably 23 years old till I was about 26, 27, and I didn't really have a coach. That's the thing in tennis as well. You know, you're not coming to training and you know, you've got, I don't know how it works in football. I guess you got your goals.
It's really hard. It's the hardest thing in the world ever. Yeah.
But I guess you've got your coaches, right? So you've got the manager, you've got your coaches, you have to come to training. Whereas I didn't have any of that. I'm the manager of my own business essentially. So I probably had a good 3-4 years where, you know, I'm going to play challenger tournaments in Thailand. In between events, I'm going to Koh-Phi, you know, for the parties over there, and then coming back and, you know, made a lot of good memories, but my tennis didn't benefit. And I got to the age of sort of 26, 27, and I wasn't happy, to be honest, with where I was in my life. I felt like a failure. I felt like I'd wasted all my talent. And I kind of made a decision after I had a very unsuccessful Australian Open qualifying to basically commit for a year and see what happened, make the right decisions, not go out anymore. And at the end of that year, it was a bit better. And then it kind of then became a bit of an addiction, you know, like, okay, what can I sacrifice now to see how far I can get? And it's kind of just grown and grown and grown until obviously I made top 100 at the end of last year.
This might be a really weird question to ask, but how good do you think you are? If everything falls your way and you play to your full potential, how good do you believe you are? I guess at 93 in the world, you are one of the best in the world. But I do believe on my day, I'm one of the best in the world. I mean, I beat Hubert Hurkacz, who was 12 in the world at the time at the Olympics. I beat Schwartzman, who was, I think, top 10 in the world. Obviously, Casper Ruud at Wimbledon last year was number 4 in the world. Yeah. I always feel like I've been underachieving my whole career. And the frustrating thing is I finally felt like at the start of this year, I was playing so well and I was like, right, this is going to be my year now. And obviously it never goes to plan, does it? I got slapped in the face by the injury. So I'm just, and that's also why I was desperate to come back, because I'm playing the best tennis of my career, playing Andrei Rublev in Hong Kong on his best surface, and you know, had set points against him in the second set, and it was neck and neck, and you know, I just felt like this is it now. I'm here, and you know, everything's just sort of crumbled.
If you come back and you stay injury free, with tennis players kind of having longer careers now, they seem to be going deeper into the 30s. Have you set yourself any targets, ranking wise, or?
No, I don't do ranking targets because for 12 years my goal was top 100, and it got to a stage where it didn't mean anything anymore. It was just like this distant sort of, impossibility. So that the ranking targets I don't find important, and I find sometimes, I don't know if it's the same in football as well, they can create pressure as well, so they can become a negative thing. And if you don't reach a ranking goal, for God's sake, I'm rubbish. I'm not getting to where I want to get to. So for me, it's all process based now. It's about, like I said, what stuff can I sacrifice, and how can I perform as a professional in the best way? What mentality, my philosophy with the way that I approach the sport and approach my life, and that's all my targets are things that I can control essentially.
What's the situation with your father at the moment? Because I know that for quite a few years you two didn't speak due to an issue with LTA funding. How did that affect you, first of all? And what's the scenario at the moment?
I mean, that was probably one of the reasons why I ended up, going to all these tournaments and going and focusing on enjoying myself rather than on my tennis. I think, I didn't come home for probably 5 or 6 years. It kind of distanced myself from my family and stuff, and it was very difficult for a young person to go through, from the age of sort of 18 to 24, especially because me and my family are so close.
Yeah.
I mean, me and my dad get on great now. He was feeding me balls on Sunday and stuff, so that's a good thing as well. And I think that reconciliation is probably a part of the reason why I end up getting back to the top 100 as well. I think, again, in all sports, a happy athlete is a confident athlete, right? That's the way it works.
Mm. And you want your dad behind you, don't you? As
100%.
everybody would. Yeah.
My dad is he knows a lot about tennis. He's as obsessed with the sport as I am, and I think if you look back over pretty much all successful tennis players, there's a driving force behind them, the same as in football, probably. There's always a driving force, because from a young age, an 8-year-old kid isn't going to drive themselves at a professional level, and at the end of the day, your parents want what's best for you, don't they? So I think it's important to have that around you.
One of the most famous driving forces, as you describe it, was Andre Agassi's father. Yeah. Read his autobiography, and Andre Agassi said he hated tennis because it was a solo sport and the pressure was too big.
Yeah.
He would much rather have played in a basketball team or where he could have shared the load.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel that when you're on the court? That is, you are ultimately the only person who can change your own destiny. Yeah,
I mean, I love team sports. That's why I love football. I think it's a very different dynamic to the tennis. The tennis, obviously, there are lots of other individual sports as well, but tennis is humbling. It's humbling as hell. Like, as you know from saying, you've played yourself.
Yeah.
When you're playing,
sorry, no.
When you've played to a high level yourself,
we're not going to do that. You, Liam Broady, you're not going to say to him, "I know you've played yourself," right? Please, everyone heard that.
I played the other week.
Everyone heard that. Okay, everybody heard that. Everybody heard that.
Played about 2 weeks ago. So
sorry to interrupt. I just needed to make sure there was a point where we mentioned that. Please,
we were clear.
Dear Lord, wow.
But I felt I wanted the court to swallow me up. That's why I know.
But this is what I was going to say. Is that's what tennis does to you, right? So you're out there on your own. Any mistakes you make, it's on you. Every single point you play, you can play hundreds of points in a match, is decided by your mistake, your opponent's mistake, or their good shot, or your good shot. So when win or lose, it's on you. So losing matches that you shouldn't lose to players you shouldn't lose to, it's a humbling experience. It's not nice. But I would encourage almost anyone to go through that. I think tennis is fantastic for people's personality, to at your strength of character, to sort of figure things out on your own and realize that it is all on your shoulders.
I think that's a really good point and a really good test as well, because not everything will be rosy. Someone will lose a game, but it's like, how do you respond to that?
Yeah.
Say when you're not playing well and you have to try and find a way.
Exactly.
Have you got something within you to be able to try and find that? And there are similarities within that with football.
And that's what I mean. Like, that's the beauty of sport, full stop. And then tennis is almost special in a sense because it's every point as well.
Yeah.
So every point is a microcosm of the match. Do you know what I mean? So if you play a bad point and you don't turn it around, it can quickly turn into 2, 3, 4 points and the match is gone. So every point you have to find a way to get over the last point and stay in the present and keep going.
It's also grueling calendar as well, isn't it? I mean, play for like 48 weeks of the year, essentially. I mean, there's very little time off, isn't there? You know, to reset and recharge your batteries and kind of change your mindset or whatever. It's pretty relentless, isn't it?
Yeah, it's common for players to play 90 to 100 matches a year. I think I played 32 weeks of tournaments last year. Some of those would be 2-week tournaments as well. Obviously, training in London, I'm away from home for probably another 10 to 12 weeks. So I'm probably away from Manchester and Stockport for 46, 47 weeks a year. And it is tough, but you get used to it. It's the same as anything. You know, you train a muscle, you get used to it. You do that, you get used to it.
How about this then? In regards to playing the individual sport and to have the highs and lows and essentially to be your own boss, knowing what your potential is, what happens when you receive criticism externally from people that don't know your full story, they don't know the stuff that you're going through? What's that like in an individual sport?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm always pretty open to criticism.
From anyone and everyone, or just certain people?
I have an ego. It's the same as anyone. If you're getting stick, you're going to get your back up. For people that aren't inside my group, I don't really care. Same as any sport. I've had it loads on social media, all that sort of stuff. I've seen footballers get it 10 times worse. I mean, a lot of tennis. It's a big thing in tennis at the moment. You know, because gambling's really big on tennis. Because there's always matches to be bet on. There's you can bet on individual points. So there's a lot of gamblers, and you get a lot of angry people commenting horrible stuff and all that. But to be honest, that's never really bothered me. That's just kind of the way that the nature of the beast, I guess. And without those guys gambling on my matches, there'd be less money for the tennis players in the prize money. But I quite like sometimes receiving criticism if it's framed in the right way from people outside of my setup, because sometimes it might be something I've not thought of. Often it's not, because obviously I'm thinking about my tennis 24/7. You know, it's like sometimes I'll have insomnia from it. I'll be lay awake thinking, what can I do? What am I not doing? What can I improve on? What needs to get better? So I think it can be welcome sometimes, but obviously if it's framed in the right way, and if it's not from my dad, obviously.
You said before that tennis is your passion. Do you love it? Do you love the sport?
Yeah, I love it. I'm obsessed with it. It's given me a lifestyle I could only ever have dreamed of. Obviously, nice to meet Nedum as well. I've been watched you over the years.
See you as well, my friend.
But this is stuff that someone like me went to pre-snore school in Stockport. Yeah, was going to the pub sort of 3 times a week with my mates, and I would never have experienced the things I've experienced and seen the things I've seen, and played on centre court at Wimbledon and experienced, being the first wild card to beat a top 4 seed and stuff that people could only ever dream of, and that's why I love it, and that's why I'm always trying to give things back, and I'm trying to represent the sport as much as myself.
I did a 3-week teaching placement at Priestnall High School. Actually, good school.
Really, it is. Well, it's good now. They got in. They got in one of those super head teachers, and they turned it around. Yeah. Well, it was nice when I was there.
Literally. After you left, it got better. Crazy,
Talk to us about Stockport then. It's a city. It's considered a Manchester City stronghold. Yes. There's a lot of City fans from that part of the world. Is that where you got City from school or from family?
100%. I think my dad's actually a Red. And all of my dad's family friends were Blues, and a lot of kids that I went to school with were Blues as well, so I was just around it all the time. And obviously, me being me, I like to rebel against my dad as well, which is what most of my siblings are like. So my older sister, Naomi, who plays as well, I remember being probably 7 or 8 years old, and she made me sign a contract. Pretty manipulative. I'm not sure that's legal. Got me to sign a contract when I was about 8 years old, saying I'm going to be a lifelong Blue, essentially. And I've still not broken the contract. Fantastic. So that's pretty good. But I guess that was kind of a way of fitting in and feeling like I could relate to a lot of again, my dad's friends and my own friends at school as well.
How do you follow City? Because the life of a tennis player obviously means you're travelling for the vast majority of the year. Different time zones, all that kind of stuff. Do you find it quite difficult sometimes to follow?
It can be, but sometimes it can match up quite nicely. Sometimes we have the 8 p.m. kickoffs, we have the midday kickoffs, stuff like that. It can kind of match up quite well with a tennis schedule and the way that you train, and especially if you're in the States and you have a midday kickoff, you just get up at 7 a.m. and quite often they have it on in the hotel rooms. It's quite nice. So actually, it can work pretty well. Other times it can get quite tricky, like when you're in Australia and it's a 2 a.m. match. then I just watch the highlights for those ones.
Yeah, Australia is. I used to get up 2-3 o'clock in the morning to watch Andy Murray at the Australian Open. So I know what it's like.
That's commitment, that.
Yeah, shoe on the other foot. Talking about Andy, he seems to be a really good friend of yours. You have a really good relationship, share the same humour. Has he helped you in some ways? You talked before about the years where maybe there was a void there with the situation with your dad. Do you think Andy is like a legend of British tennis and he's done so much? Do you think he's helped?
I mean, he obviously, that's not a debate. He is a legend of the sport. I mean, he was the first British guy to win Wimbledon in 77 years, I think it was, obviously after Fred Perry. I'm pointing to myself because he's a Stockport lad as well.
He is indeed.
I take great pride in that as well, obviously Fred being from Stockport. He's done so much for the sport. I mean, he's especially since his injury. I think he's become a lot more hands-on with. I won't say mentoring. I'm not going to put a label on it, but kind of just helping here and there with other British players, giving them tips, training with them, giving them his opinions. And that's the thing, isn't it? When you get it from a world-class player, the advice carries a lot more weight than if you're getting it from your coach or your dad or something like that. And he's helped me a lot. I think I've probably had two serious conversations with him in my life, and they were both probably pretty important to my direction as a professional. And I think he's done the same for Jack Draper. I think he's helped Jack a lot, and obviously Jack's, I think, going to be top. Future British #1 top player. So there's a good atmosphere in British tennis at the moment, and especially in the men's side. I can't really speak for the women's side as much, but in the men's side there's a good camaraderie, and everyone will train together and sort of, which is rare in an individual sport as well.
Because that does feel different.
Yeah, because you're all kind of potentially taking food off each other's plate at times, but the way I kind of look at it is, the success of another British player is the success for me as well. Obviously the more players we can get doing well in British tennis, the more notoriety there will be within the sport and within Britain. So,
do you worry about the strength in depth though? Because Jack seems to be, certainly on the men's side, he seems to be the only potentially world-class player we've got at that age. Do you worry a little bit there though? There isn't that depth.
I think obviously Cam's going to be around for a while yet. I think Dan Evans obviously is, he's dropped to about 70 in the world at the moment, but I think he'll get back up there.
Oh, those fantastic players.
I know he's a little bit, but I think Henry Surley just won Junior Wimbledon last year. He beat JJ Wolf a couple of weeks ago. He's 70 in the world. This kid's 18 years old. He's red hot. He's got a similar game to Jack in the sense he's a left-hander. He's got a massive serve, big game. I think he can potentially do really well. There's another guy, Arthur Ferry, who's 21. He's about 240, 250 in the world. Very talented guy. I think he's going to do well. We have a couple guys over at university in the States actually playing on scholarships there that are really good as well. So I think it's progressing in the right direction.
Yeah,
I do anyway.
Because you're Andy Murray. Did you have Liam's just sort of described there, somebody who's kind of an omnipotent figure who can help guide you. Was there anybody at City who had like an elder statesman who kind of really helped you?
Yes. He's not well, to be fair, it's Sean Wright Phillips.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he trod the path that so many of us followed. Like, he came through the academy when we were at Platt Lane, when we were playing at Main Road, all this. And he was the star. And also, when he arrived there, he was one of the nicest people you could possibly meet, whilst also being an incredible player and so important for the football club. He had the connection with the fans. He had a connection with the staff. He had a connection with the history of the team, going from, as I say, Main Road to what was Eastlands at the time. And he came in and he welcomed you as a young player. And when, like, the best player is welcoming you, making you feel like you deserve to be there, he kind of sets the tone.
That's what I was going to say, because obviously in football, I guess it's important for there to be a senior player that sort of welcomes you into the dressing room and sets the tone, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in regards to senior players around that time, it kind of felt like it was one way or the other. Yeah. Because for some, it was quite aggressive. It's quite aggressive, an intro into like men's football. Yeah. It's like, who are you? You're just a kid. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do that. And for some kids,
I guess they want you to earn it like they did, sort of thing. And...
But like, life changes. You know what I mean? Progression changes all the time, you know. And some of the things that, say, people had to do back then to fit in, we're not doing it now, but still we're kind of finding, in my opinion, better players, because that first hurdle is one which could be far higher depending on where you are and who's leading the way. Do you get what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're not like a young person today might in some ways feel slightly more entitled, maybe. Yeah. but then they're also able to show their abilities more because they're welcomed. Whereas from back when, doesn't matter how good you are, someone might not be having you for a year, 2 years, and as a consequence.
I feel like back when you were coming through as well, if there's a younger player on the pitch, you're getting absolutely smashed as well.
It's aggressive, They're
going to show you what men's football's about.
They don't. I mean, Tottenham did the same with Rico Lewis last year, didn't they?
I was going to say, Rico's been through the absolute washing machine at times.
Yeah, and stood up to it as well.
That's the thing, Rico's a tough kid, you know what I mean? I like what he stands for, but even if I was be playing against him, he'd go for the most inexperienced person.
Of course.
And that's how ruthless it can be. At times, not with Rico, because obviously, he's England international, but it can get a bit awkward because it's almost like you're just bullying someone on the field.
Yeah.
I'll stick to tennis.
But this is
you stick to that.
But this is what I love about sport, and it's a similarity in tennis and football. It's at the end of the day, teams and players will expose your weaknesses, and they'll keep exposing your weaknesses until there's not a weakness there anymore. And it's the same in tennis, whether it's a forehand or a backhand, whether it's a youth player on the pitch, whether it's a keeper that doesn't like balls going over the top. Teams will ruthlessly expose you until you deal with it.
Speaking with Brian Barry Murphy as well, is it the FA Trophy that the youngsters play in?
They're in the FA Youth Cup final.
No, but the FA Trophy. The one where they play against Bradford and teams like that.
Oh yeah, formerly the Johnston's Pay.
The EFL Trophy. The EFL Trophy. Here's a really great group of incredibly talented youngsters that play football in a really impressive manner, move the ball well, take the ball under pressure. But then they lose these games. And they're losing these games because they're playing against people who've been playing for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Who aren't as concerned about the little details which they're trying to develop on a day-to-day basis.
Launching balls into the box and
physical. Exactly. These guys, 21's football, has his upside and his downside. And one thing it doesn't have is some 6'4" guy that's just going to pull on your shoulder for 90 minutes straight, send the ball in the air and then try and deal with that. And ultimately that's the difference, because for as much as they're playing to try and start their careers, the people they'll be coming up against soon, these are playing to pay bills. They're playing to be able to stay in one place. This is football's life changing to them. So there's no sympathy, there's no insistence upon playing the right way. It's we're going to play this way.
That's where I kind of find it a bit strange in football. You have the youth setups and then the men's teams, whereas in tennis, obviously, once you turn 18, you're in the pros. There's nothing else. You're playing against grown men. From the age of 18, you're playing on the futures tours in the middle of nowhere. Tunisia, Egypt, Israel, Thailand, all over the world. You're on your own. You're playing against these guys, and it is kind of like that in that sense of it's just stronger players that know how to play. They're good at in and stuff like that.
Okay. I thought that was the word you were going to say.
Do you get players who target your backhand or so? If
mate, that's the nature of the sport. Like I said, if I can find a way to beat you easier and give myself a higher percentage chance of winning, I'm going to expose it. It's as simple as that. And what I find, and I suspect it's the same in footy as well. As you get weaker, I grow stronger as well. It might be the same if you have a one-on-one with someone in football. You can feel someone losing confidence. As you gain confidence from that.
Absolutely. People start playing in a different way. Say I'll tell you a story. This is my opinion. This is as I saw it. There was probably a 2-year spell where Vincent Kompany would not leave Wayne Rooney alone. Wherever Rooney was on the field, Vinny was there, and Vinny was kicking him aggressively. Rooney starts to get deeper and deeper and deeper because he's sick and tired of getting kicked by Vinny. So Vinny's now got the strength to where somebody's having to, in key moments, play a game differently. Which aren't to say Rooney's strengths. Now Vinny's job becomes easier. He's done such a good job in it. And the one which I think I've said here before was when he did it to Samuel Eto'o as well. Do you remember this one, Rob? He was in a pre-season game in America. So it was after Inter Milan had just won the Champions League, and us at City was our first time going on tour to America. So, we're heading in the right direction instead of, with all due respect, playing Stockport. When they're now playing Inter Milan.
Getting beat by Stockport.
Yeah, exactly.
Stockport on the way back up now.
I know. Congrats to them. But they were playing in this game, and I was on the bench watching, and we were getting killed. Obviously it's Inter Milan, getting killed. But Vinny just was getting more and more frustrated. And Vinny's got a real edge to him. So because the game's not going well, he's getting more and more worked up. He's getting more and more physical with Samuel Eto'o in a pre-season game. I think Eto'o went to the Toure brothers at halftime and said, "Can you tell him to calm down a little bit? It's pre-season."
Yeah.
Vinny's message back was, "The more he complains, the more I'll kick him." So every time he opened his mouth from that point, Vinny said it. and he did it.
Yeah.
At 3-0 down at half-time or something like that, Vinny then continued this thing to where he's like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And you're like, even though it is a pre-season game, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That I learned a lot about Vinny that day.
Yeah.
Because losing at anything to him, it's the worst thing you can possibly do.
Is there a particular player who's given you problems over? Like sounds like Vincent's trying to get inside somebody's head in case he plays a bigger game against that person. Is there a player on tour you've really struggled?
To be honest, I mean, it's such a cliche, but I feel like the person that I've always struggled with the most is myself. Like, doubts, imposter syndrome, that sort of stuff. Always being my own biggest critic. I've actually probably always felt quite good with the housery side of stuff. Like it motivates me more. And that's been the case ever since I was a kid. If people do it to me, I feel like, great, they're not focusing on the game. Now I can sort of make hay whilst the sun shines. But there's plenty of situations. I mean, one thing that I've struggled with before is, and you guys deal with it all the time, is when a crowd's fully against you.
Oh, yeah.
Mate, when I played Kyrgios, and do you know what was messing with my head? Everyone before the match was saying, like, "Oh, you're playing him on his court." And I was like, "What is this? Like, this isn't his court. Like, let's go. Let's see. And I've known Nick for years because we grew up in juniors together and stuff. And went out there, and it was during COVID, so it was only supposed to be like a 40% capacity. And mate, I have never seen anything like it. The court was. It's not the main court. The main court there, I think, is Margaret Court, or is it Rod Laver? The two bigger ones. But he purposely plays on that court until like the quarterfinals, because basically he'll play night matches there. It's unticketed, and it was like walking out into like a gladiatorial like arena. And obviously in tennis, like, this is the mad thing. Like, you can't walk away from it. Like, if I'm sweating, obviously it gets humid there. I need to go to my towel. There's guys that could reach out and touch my face, and they're telling me back home, like, all this, like, abusing my game, telling me like, how bad this shot is, how bad that shot is, and I'm like, what is going on here, man? And that's his, and that's kind of when I understood that's his realm. Like, he'll use his tricks, like his gamesmanship, and he's like a conductor with the crowd. And it was like, I was completely unprepared for it. I'd never played in anything like that before. Like, obviously Wimbledon, it's all a lot nicer, and obviously that's like a home game for me. Like, the crowd's on my side, and I thrive in those situations. It actually makes a big difference in tennis as well, the same as home and away does in football. People don't maybe realise that as much, but that was a big lesson for me there, that to realise. And obviously footballers go through that every game, man. Is that about you, Rob? Yeah, do you reckon you could? Oh, I'd stand up to that, no problem. But the problem is that they want you to engage with them. Because the second you engage with them, again, it's the same as like that gamesmanship. The second you engage with the crowd, you're not thinking about the match. Facts, yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, so how do you block it out? I'm yet to learn. Any advice from you, Nedum? So within football, like, I loved winning at home. Loved winning at home. But I also loved silencing a crowd if you won. Yeah. Like, if you win a big game away from home and you're seeing like the fans miserable, like it's rocking, then it's silent. Yeah. That's an amazing feeling. Yeah. But within football, there are lots of things which you can do within the game to sort of upset them. Yeah. You know, they're trying to get their team to be like high tempo. All right, we'll just slow it down for a little bit. You know, we'll try and win little cheap fouls. And just upset the flow of the game, get them worked up, but then also know that you're capable of winning it. Yeah. Because realistically, like, they're baying for blood. They want you to lose so badly. Yeah. So then if you do manage to score against them, like, I can hear the sound of heartbreak amongst thousands of people. Yeah. It's brilliant. But then the other side of it is, it's the equivalent of like going to Anfield and like they score in a game where worst feeling on the planet. Worst feeling on the planet. The game that stands out the most to me, like, I'll be honest, I've had some bad results against me, some big bad results. But we lost, when I was on loan at Sunderland, lost 5-1 to Newcastle at St James's Park. Yeah. I think I could hear every single word that 60,000 people were saying to me and the rest of the Sunderland team. Yeah. As goals were flying in. Flying in. Yeah. Can't escape that. Yeah. Do you just get more used to it the longer your career goes on? Because I would imagine the first time you experience that, it must be pretty tough. Yeah. But then, presumably definitely. By the end. It's experience, isn't it? 100%, yeah. But then also within football, it's very much a team game, but it is also 11 individuals. Yeah. How you playing within this game
if you're away from home and you're not having a good game and the crowd notice it,
and they get on your back, and
mate,
yeah.
that is what I've seen people like disappear.
Yeah,
Like
stop wanting the ball.
Completely
like,
disappear. It's like someone's just not on the field anymore.
Yeah.
Mentally, they've gone, like physically, emotionally, and even like you said before about finding somebody's weakness and trying to play into it. Like that's analysis. That's sporting analytics. Well, it's across every sport. If you're going head to head with someone. This doesn't happen very often, but when you see somebody in a game, whether it's me, whoever, and the matchup's not right, that's tough.
Yeah.
Because then you're looking at it. Say if someone's significantly quicker than someone else and they kick one down the line, race each other, and all of a sudden he's quicker. And that happens in the first 5 minutes of the game. For 85 minutes, someone is absolutely bricking it, thinking, please don't try and run past me.
Sounds like when you were trying to defend against me in that charity game we played.
Which one's this? Which one's this?
The one in the summer, just gone.
In the summer?
You were struggling there, mate.
Struggling? Mate, we started on the same team.
We did a...
We started on the same team.
That's why you were struggling.
We started on the same team.
That's why you were struggling.
So let's be. Did you score second half?
No, I didn't actually play.
So you scored first half when we were on the same team.
I was too
and then
tired.
I swapped teams at half time and somehow my team won. But me, all right, cool.
Well, we'll move on from
Let's
that.
forget
anyway.
fact checks. Let's go vibes only.
On the tour, the tennis tour, is football a thing that's discussed in the locker room amongst players, that kind of thing?
Massively.
Yeah.
Massively. I'd say that's probably the biggest sport within tennis that people follow. Then I'd say like probably American football, stuff like that.
Are there any other City fans on tour that we don't know?
Do you know what?
About?
There's over the years there was a guy, Tunisian guy, Malik Jaziri. He was top 100. He was African #1 for years, and he was always a Man City fan. And for years he was the only one. And then obviously as the success has grown now, it's natural, right? You started to get people gravitating towards the club. Yeah. People in, I've found especially in the States, because I think football's growing over there all the time. People that have never really watched football before now are seeing City every week on the TV. And there are a lot of Americans that are big Man City fans now that I had never really noticed them even watching football before. That's the biggest one for me. And I remember when I was younger going away and people asking, what football team do you support? And you say Man City, and they'd be like, who? Like, do you know what I mean? Like they'd be like, I thought that, the classic, there's only one club in Manchester, all that stuff. Whereas now, they'll go, oh, Man City, they'll start listing off the players and all that. And they kind of give you a bit of respect. It's like, okay, nice, like, let's go.
Right, here's a question for you. Yeah. In regards to football, we're talking about watching football.
Yeah.
Yeah. If there was to be two captains set up, say it's like #1 and 2 in the world, and they're going to pick a team based on the best players to play football, are you an early pick or are you one of the last ones
in football?
In football,
mate, I'm not an early pick. I'll be honest with you.
Really?
What, within tennis players?
Yeah, within your group, within your peers.
I think Nadal plays quite well.
He's always looked good. Yeah,
I think Nadal plays quite well, but I mean, we had an 11-a-side. This was a couple of years ago now. They stuck me on at left back, so that's all you need to know, really.
Say no more, okay. There was a space available.
Yeah, well, I mean, do you know what? It was funny as hell because we hired the linos, like the ref. We had 11-a-side. Andy. This was when Andy was coming back from his hip operation as well, and he played up top for like 75 minutes. He hobbled off, mate. He was like done for like 2 weeks. He couldn't train after that. I come off the pitch. I'd borrowed someone's boots, and I didn't realise how tough they are boots. They were brand new, someone else's boots. Mate, I had these white socks on and there was blood going like halfway up my calf. I couldn't play for another week after that. There were a couple of good players out there. We had a keeper who was decent, obviously, for our level. But I probably saw the ball 3 or 4 times. I think I lost my man one time and he got a cross in.
So he gets like that, mate. Happens the best of us.
Yeah.
Would you say
I wouldn't say it wasn't because I lost focus. It wasn't lack of effort. It was just lack of awareness.
Speaking of like ability then, would you say, just as a guess, based on, say, this conversation, would you say you're better at football than Rob is at tennis?
No. Because no one's ever taught me how to kick a ball. Do you know, when it comes to like kick-ups and stuff, I'll do them all day. Like football, tennis, like all that stuff, like up over the net. We've played that for years. So I'd probably beat you at that, I'd imagine. Anything with a tennis ball.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, I've never been taught how to kick a ball.
Pal. Let's get down to the Albert.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that.
Unbelievable.
I am only joking. I'm not very good.
But when it comes to anything with a tennis ball and kick-ups and stuff like that, because my dad had me doing that for years because he was saying like it's good for your footwork and your coordination and stuff. So that sort of stuff I'm fine with. But again, when it comes to kicking a ball, I mean, because my brother played for played 4 Main Road.
Okay.
And he abuses me all the time, about my technique and stuff. And
That's
I just look like a 6-year-old kid trying to kick. I don't know how to kick a ball, guys. So
Main Road, that is a decent level.
I'm getting like defensive here. Like,
It's fine, don't worry, mate. It's fine. We're okay.
So your brother played for Main Road?
yeah, he
which
played a
is
decent level.
sort of
semi-pro.
Semi-pro,
Yeah.
That's good, yeah.
No, he was decent, yeah.
What about in terms of City players right now? Do you look at any and think they would be good tennis players?
Do you know, I played tennis with Riyad Mahrez a few years ago. He was a good guy. He was obsessed with Federer.
Yeah.
Aren't
we all?
He had a good forehand, but his backhand, I hope he wouldn't be watching this. His backhand
ropey.
wasn't great. It was a bit ropey.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think who else. I mean, I'm not sure if any of the boys even play tennis.
I did a bit of research before. Apparently, Akanji does.
No way.
And he's pretty good. And I think his mum played to a decent level as well.
Because
And
he's
then,
Swiss
was it Nathan
Akanji, isn't
Ake?
he?
Producer.
I feel like in Switzerland, it runs in your blood. I mean, you got the Roger Federer
This is it.
gene. Like that's all you need,
Doesn't get
really.
any better, does it?
Yeah, exactly.
The Davis Cup is coming to Manchester.
Yeah.
It was here last year, and it's coming again in September 2024. That's Great Britain. It's like the World Cup of tennis is how it's described. You were at the event. What did you?
I wasn't at the event.
Oh, you
in
weren't
Manchester.
there?
No. I was at the finals.
Oh right, okay.
At the end of the last. I don't go to the little. No, I'm joking.
What did you think? Because your sister was there, obviously.
I was
Naomi.
desperate to go. I'll be honest. Like obviously because in my home city.
Yeah.
And we don't really have we don't have a professional event in Manchester now, which is a shame because there's a big history at the Northern.
Yeah.
It was referred to as the Wimbledon of the North for many years. Sampras played it, McEnroe played it, all the old school greats. And then the tournament got moved to after Wimbledon, and then it kind of gradually sort of faded into obscurity. And then it sort of became a challenger again, and that was nice for a while. And now that's why I was so happy when Davis Cup got announced in Manchester, because I think the Northwest is such a power, or has been historically such a powerhouse for tennis. And in recent years, there haven't been as many players coming through, which obviously there's two things I care about, is tennis and where I'm from. And, it upsets me to see the area being neglected, or in my opinion, neglected. There's a lot of talent that maybe isn't able to be developed. And something like the Davis Cup coming to Manchester, it might not seem like a big deal, but for me that is a big deal that we're able to have these people going to matches and being able to young kids being inspired, that sort of thing. And we broke the record for, I think, the largest attendance at a British Davis Cup match as well. So the people in Manchester turned out for it. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think it was the first time we'd had the Davis Cup since 1992, which
Amazing.
is a long time. And
Before I was born.
Yeah, London is tennis is a very London-centric sport. So I think you're right. By having it here, it might turn some young people onto tennis.
But that's the beautiful thing. There's such a history in Greater Manchester behind tennis, and people don't know it. I mean, Fred Perry is the greatest British tennis player in history. And he was from, Portwood Roundabout was pretty much where he was from, outside of Stockport. Like, there's potential to be such a history here. And people, again, in the Northwest and Greater Manchester are such great sportsmen, boxing, football, tennis. There's all these different sports, and there's such gifted people. It's just a shame that maybe there's not as much of a notice put into the tennis.
So the Davis Cup is coming back to Manchester. We're playing Canada, Finland and Argentina.
Yeah.
And that is September the 10th to the 15th at the AO Arena.
Yeah.
Why do you think people should turn out? If there's somebody listening to this now who's maybe not the most avid tennis fan, what would you say to them about coming along?
It's not like your Wimbledons. It's a lot more fun. It's a lot louder. The players are seriously interactive with the crowd a lot more than they are with your normal matches. If you want to just come out and support your country, like that's the place to do it. If you want to come out and represent where you're from, that's the place to do it. I think it's a good time. Like, it's more of a party atmosphere, and you obviously have the spectacle of some of the best tennis players in the world at the same time.
Your sister Naomi was there last time. She did the broadcasting, presented in between, and was absolutely superb. You've done a couple of match day lives for us, and you're very good on camera. Now,
Thank you.
Naomi is a total natural at broadcasting. She does a lot for the BBC and is just, it seems very easy to her. it seems like there might be something there. Would you consider doing that once your tennis career is
my plan is to be successful enough in my tennis career that I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And then I can pick and choose what I want to do. But I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. I do enjoy doing a lot of that sort of stuff. With the Matchday Live, I'm passionate about the football, so I quite enjoy doing that. I've done a bit. I did some studio stuff and some commentary at Queen's last year. Again, I'm passionate about the tennis. I think I've got a bit of knowledge about the tennis compared to your average person, so I enjoyed that as well. And I enjoyed talking a load. So
the last 2 years at Wimbledon, you've reached the third round. Your Grand Slam, best performances at a Grand Slam. Obviously, you've got this injury at the minute. How kind of those experiences, you talked before about beating Casper Ruud, who was number 4 in the world. You beat Schwartzman, who was 16 at the time, the year before. The whole nation kind of then got behind you. You got a message from Jack Grealish in 2022 after you did the Grealish celebration.
Yeah.
How determined are you just to get back in time for this grass court swing, play some of those tournaments leading up to, and then go and try and have another crack at Wimbledon?
Yeah, massively. I think the grass court season, especially for British players, it's the biggest time of the year. You can't get away from that. That's where the most spotlight is on the sport, and Wimbledon is the biggest tournament on the planet. It always has been and probably always will be. The tradition that's there, the standard of play, it's where everyone wants to win. So that for me is the biggest time of the year. That's where you want to be prepared to play your best tennis, and I've managed to do that the last few years. I think it's important, though, not to get too carried away with it. I think, again, we were talking about experience of older players before. Like, as I've got older, I've kind of learned to treat Wimbledon the same as any other tournament, whereas maybe when I was younger, it was kind of like, this is hallowed turf. Like, I don't want to put a foot out of place, and I was getting, distracted by all the stuff going on around the matches. And whereas now I'm very strict with it. We kind of rent a house for the few weeks, and I'll get my practice done, I'll get my media done, and straight back to the house. So away from the matches and the practice, I'm just living a normal life with my family and with my girlfriend.
Naomi helps you, doesn't she, during the Wimbledon period? Kind of like pulls together and does some work with you. What's her role during that?
Well, my brother travels with me full time. My brother's like, manager, like does all the stuff. He'll book flights, hotels, organise tickets, like, he'll do whatever I need essentially. And then during Wimbledon, Naomi helps out as well. I mean, she's got her twins now, so her hands are pretty much full. She can't take care of another baby, so that's I'm being a bit neglected by her now, but no, she's just great to have around because she's been through it. She gets it. She knows what people need. I think sometimes, all you ever want to do before a big match is switch off, isn't it? Like, you just want to chill. You don't want to be thinking about the game the next day. Like, for me personally, like you can't really do it in football, but I won't check draws because I don't want to. I saw actually a quote. John Stones sometimes doesn't know who he's playing in 2 days.
Yeah,
he doesn't know.
We've called him, didn't we? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I had to speak about that somewhere afterwards, and someone said, "Oh, is it mind games?" I was like, nah,
no, it's genuine.
Not.
I'm exactly the same. So I won't check draws. I'll know the time I'm playing the next day. I won't know who I play the next day. I won't know who I play the next day until my coach says, right, let's talk about the match. Because if I do in the past, not so much now, even if someone lets it slip, but in the past, I would get anxious and be thinking about what I'm doing tomorrow, the guy I'm playing, and worrying about how it's going to go, and it would affect my sleep, and it would then obviously affect my performance. Whereas if I didn't know, I'd just be going to sleep like, yeah, great, like let's go tomorrow. Which again kind of comes from that experience and stuff, I guess.
So last year when you beat Casper Ruud, number 4 at the time, your biggest win of your career, you then play Shapovalov in the 4th round, and you're set up. Are you getting giddy at that point?
No.
At all? Are you thinking... No. Because I would be.
No. I think you were, to be honest.
I mean, well, I
sounds
was
like you
as well.
were.
Yeah, it's... I think because I let myself down a lot in my younger years with that sort of stuff, getting carried away, like, the match is done, blah, blah, blah. I'm very disciplined, and sometimes I think people watch me on a tennis court and think, he doesn't look like he's that bothered, or, like not much emotion. Whereas inside there is carnage. Like, all I'm trying to do is keep it together, stay focused, stay calm, stay in that sort of purple patch of where you perform your best. And against Shapovalov, it's exactly the same. All I'm thinking about is the next point and how I'm going to win it, and how I'm going to expose the weaknesses, if there is a weakness, how I'm going to force my strengths onto his game, and that's all that ever goes through my mind. It's never, oh, I'm almost winning this match. I'm almost in the 4th round. Oh, there's this much money on the line if I win this. It's never any of that.
You talk about money there. There is an accusation in tennis that the spread of prize money isn't maybe as fair as it can be.
Yeah.
And if you're a top 20 player, you're absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But if you're further down those rankings, it can be very, very tough because of all the outgoings you've got, all the travel you've got. I mean, you touched on it there with your brother and all the things that he does. What's your thoughts on that? And what could the authorities do to make the playing field slightly more even?
It's a tough one, man. We spoke earlier about how cutthroat the rankings in tennis can be. If you're injured, you drop out the rankings. That's the way it is. There's nothing, but that is why the best players are the best players. And that we always say the rankings never lie. If a player's ranked where they are, there's a reason why they're there. And, that's the nature of the beast at the end of the day. To the victor go the spoils. If you're the best, you get the best prize money. I think it's as simple as that. I do believe that it could be a bit more evenly spread, but I also don't complain about it myself, because if you're better than me and you beat me, you should get it. That's the way it works, I guess.
Any other changes you make
within the sport?
To the sport, yeah.
We're going a bit specific now, but they actually made a points change this year about more points at the ATPs and less at the challengers, which is fun, because what you want with the point system in tennis, you want to encourage people to play better tournaments. So you always have the best players at the best tournaments. Whereas this year, the changes have I think, they encourage the guys at the mid-level to play at the highest level, but then also the guys sort of at the lower mid-level to play down, because they've taken the points away a little bit at the mid-level. So a lot of guys now are going down and getting more points than guys just playing at that mid-level. It's a bit complicated. But
so you think that might have a bit of a knock-on effect then long-term?
I think so. They said they were going to wait 3 months and see how it went, because they had a lot of complaints about it from players. And I think they've just said now, because I'm in one of the player chats, that they're going to wait till the end of the year. I mean, it's tough. It's tough to... The difficult thing about the ranking system in tennis is there's always going to be people that feel like they're hard done by, and there's always going to be people that feel like they've been left out, and there's always going to be people that feel like they're not being rewarded for what they do. I think the biggest thing is to try and just keep it as fair as possible.
You mentioned a player chat there. Is that a WhatsApp? Is it WhatsApp groups on tour?
Yeah. There's a few. I mean, that one's with all the pro players in. There's not much banter in that one.
Are there little groups on tour and people stick together and stuff like that?
We had one during COVID with all the British guys in. Because during COVID, obviously, we weren't playing competitions, and we were having these events, Battle of the Brits and stuff. And it got pretty rowdy. Basically, there were no fans other than, obviously, the players.
You had to ball boy yourself as well.
Had to ball boy the other players. There were 2 teams. If you won your match, it's points to your team, not points to the other. I mean, it was like, if you win your match, you get an extra $3,000 for yourself. If your team wins the day, everyone gets an extra $1,000 on the team. It was just like the sickest idea. And it just devolved over the course of a week. At first, there wasn't much heckling. And then by the end of the week, it was horrifically personal. I remember Emma Raducanu, she won US Open. She was 16 years old. And Andy's on the side of the court with a foghorn. This is one of the greatest British tennis players of all time, giving her, heckling her, beeping his foghorn between her first and second serves, which obviously you don't do. That's a cardinal sin. And he's turned to my sister and gone, should I really be doing this to a 16-year-old? And he's gone, it doesn't matter, and carried on doing it. I mean, but it was actually fantastic, because I have never been so tense and nervous in my life as in during that event. I mean, it was horrific, because these are the guys that know your biggest weaknesses. So, and they are relentless, because everyone was like, this is hilarious. So we're going to do it more, see what we can get away with. And it was on the BBC Red Button. So everyone else was having a good time with it. And you also knew, whatever someone says to me, the second I come off court, they're getting it 10 times worse, because everyone's playing matches on the day, so everyone's going through it. It was just an incredible sort of system that we came up with out of nowhere.
I enjoy. I mean, that was the first time I ever saw Emma Raducanu was at that event, the one where you...
And she was fantastic.
And she was stepping up to 18, 19, 20-year-olds.
I look back now, and she was looking back, she was the standout performer, because everyone was going, This is insane how she carries herself. She's 16 years old. Everyone's bottling it. everyone's getting abused, everyone's just falling to pieces. Like, you know, there's people, you miss a shot in the net and someone's running on court with a dustpan and brush and going, let me clean that rubbish up for you. Like, you can't get away from it, man.
Wild.
Like, it's like
wow.
You've got people on the pitch, like, talk to you the whole time. And she just took it in her stride. And it was a bit like, this is weird how well she's done it. And obviously, I mean, showed why she's got the star quality, I guess.
There's a few questions that we ask all of our guests. The first one is, what's one thing you would change about football? And not necessarily a rule, by the way.
Yeah.
Just anything about the game, the industry, you know, the experience watching as a fan, whatever it might be.
I don't know. I think... it's a good question. I think... Well, they're going to bring in the semi-automatic VAR now, aren't they? So I think that would have been probably the one at the start of the season, I'd have said, because I think it's a bit ridiculous at times. And I'd cap the prices on the resale of those of tickets as well.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be paying £300 to go to a game and stuff.
Yeah. What about a couple from social media that we've taken?
Yeah.
One, Sam from Burnage. Talk us through that Wimbledon celebration last year. The Jack Grealish one.
Yeah.
We touched on it before. Where did it come from? And what kind of... do you just like watching Jack play?
Do you know what? I think that was before the start of his second season, I think. And I feel like he just gets like an inordinate amount of abuse, Jack. Yeah. Like, I think he actually said as well, I don't know why he said this season, I don't know why I get booed at...
He said it the other week. Because he seems to get it everywhere he goes.
Everywhere he goes. It's weird why... And people... are so critical of him and saying, look at what Pep's done to this 100 million... I'm going to rant now. I'm sorry, but... but people say, like, oh, look at what Pep's done to this £100 million player, but we are a better team when he plays. Like, it's as simple as that. I don't know, I don't know the ins and outs of football, but we just look better whenever Jack Grealish is on the pitch. And I was so desperate for him to succeed at City because he was kind of getting the stick for his price tag. And obviously that's got nothing to do with him. He kept Villa up. He obviously got him £100 million, for their kitty, and look at him now. And he got abused for coming to City for that. And then he's gone on to win the treble as well. And I was just like, I think he scored a goal or something. And I was the two people I was most desperate to score goals were Phil Foden and Grealish, because obviously Phil being a Stockport boy, academy product, like you just get an excitement with that, don't you? Whereas Jack, I just felt like he's getting so much stick. Like, I want him to do well, and he scored a goal. I can't remember who it was against, and he gave it that, and it stuck with me because I thought, yes, like, stick it to them basically. Like, I mean, I didn't do it because of that. I just kind of did it because I thought it was a cool celebration, and I wanted the crowd to get louder. And I have quite a good connection with a lot of the fans at Wimbledon. I feel like, because I've been going to Wimbledon as a fan from the age of 4. Like, my dad, when I was, sort of 9 or 10 years old, I think under like 6-year-old kids get in. So he'd stick me and my brother in a pram and say, pretend you're like 5 years old. And that.
I used to do that at Main Road. Getting in.
Yeah, well, you were 25.
Yeah, I was 25 being carried in.
Exactly.
Through the turf style.
But so I've always felt like I've known what fans would want to see at Wimbledon. So I always try and play up to them, and I have a good connection with them. And obviously, that in my sense is more like, I can't hear the fans, like, I want you to be louder, and it happens every time. So
we've got another one, because again, touched on it earlier. Julie from Stockport, she says, how much influence and pride do you take in your career and the success that you've had? Stockport are lucky to have you and Phil Foden. Yeah. But Stockport is important to you, isn't it? It seems.
Yeah, I think, like I said before, I represent. I guess when I was younger, I didn't really see it, but actually probably competing at the Olympics for the first time was the first time that I actually kind of felt like a sense of pride in what I do. I felt like, this is, because in tennis, I feel like in football, you're representing the club, you're representing the badge, whereas tennis, you go out and do what you want. Like, at individual events, your country isn't really on there, it's your name, like, and that never really bothered me. But once I played the Olympics, it was like, I am a British Olympian now. Like, I have to hold myself to a higher standard. And then that's kind of when I thought, I'm representing where I'm from. Like that, I want people to look at me and think, wow, like, he's from Stockport, like, people from Stockport must be like that, or, people who are Manchester City fans are like that. And that's kind of where over the last few years it's become probably the most important thing, is representing where I'm from, representing my family, You know, I want people to think highly of my family because, you know, they are incredible. And the same as Manchester City and tennis. That's what, you know, my motivation is to represent.
Fantastic. One final thing is we always ask our guests to leave a question for our next guest.
Okay.
We don't know who that is, but obviously there'll be some Manchester City connection. So you just leave in a question blind.
Okay.
I'll take a note of it and we give it to the next one.
Yeah. Who do you want us to sign next season?
Good one. Let's make a note of it. Well, Liam Broady, thank you so much for joining us on the Manchester City podcast. It's been really good, actually, to have a non-footballer on here. I think we will try and do some more of these episodes where we get someone from a different sport to give us a different perspective. Have you enjoyed it?
It's been mega. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
And good luck with the recovery as well. And hopefully we do see you back on court soon.
Amazing. Thank you.
The unbeatable official Manchester City podcast. Watch the full video version of this show via City Plus now.